We do work a lot with VR, with XR really, so extended reality, AR, VR, mixed reality. And sometimes we add a little bit extra onto that. So we're talking biometrics, biofeedback, and a lot of peripherals depending on the area that we're working. There are some projects that make me question how much is too much in terms of hardware, so you end up looking like a sort of megazord with a lot of accessories. Ultimately, the goal of a simulation is it has to be near indistinguishable from real life, and you can extrapolate what you did wrong to what you would do wrong in real life and learn without the risk of, well, dying. You have about 11 milliseconds to provide the trainee with visual stimulation, auditory stimulation, oral and haptics stimulation.
Welcome. So I went to ask who is Joao Jacob, and there was a little friend of mine that told us.
Joao Jacob is a key member of the team at Mindera, with a focus on gaming, virtual reality, and simulation projects. He has been identified as a tech-led and a technical product owner at Mindera Gaming. He has been involved with the project to create an immersive, photorealistic flight simulator using a bleeding-edge game engine in partnership with VRAI. He is an active speaker and participant in the gaming and development community. He has given an expert session at the University of Aveiro on the games industry in Portugal. He was part of the organizing team for the ICGI 2021 conference.
So yeah, I feel like it does touch here and there on a lot of the things that I do and who I am, so not too shabby.
Okay,
Resources.
So it mentions Mindera Gaming.
Yeah.
So if you're hearing this, you probably know or heard about Mindera. You might have heard of Mindera Gaming. So is it just a dark room in a basement where we go and play games? Is that it?
Yeah, you'd wish that. Even though I feel like a lot of people are always a bit puzzled when you mention Mindera Gaming, but gaming was very much, still is, at the core of Mindera. It's not exactly a dark cave where you play games, but you do sometimes get to play the games you create, or you get to apply some game development techniques to things that aren't exactly games. My main motivation as a very young kid to learn how to write and read was mostly so I can start my favorite games on DOS. So I usually have to ask my father, please type down the command to open this game. And the thing is, he'd eventually have to work or go away, and I was stuck playing that game for the rest of the morning or the afternoon. So it really created a strong motivation within me to learn how to read and write. So yeah, I was basically 6 years old, booting up my own games because I had memorized the commands for my favorite DOS games.
And there you see parenting advice, how your kid can learn how to write through games.
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like games do earn a lot of bad rap in terms of how they can positively benefit a growing child or your education. And I can assure you, as someone who worked in that area, it's definitely a thing. Even sometimes the games that are less about learning can actually contribute to valuable lifelong skills. Yes, obviously I'm defending my own work here, but it is a thing.
I think he's trying not to get fired.
Also that, yes.
One of the things that you guys do is games as a service, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something that you don't hear every day, like companies developing games as a service. So maybe let's kind of deep dive on that.
Yeah. So let's say the main public, when you open a game, you kind of see those logos flying in of the different technologies and studios involved. But in very large titles, you'd be surprised the number of other similar to us as a studio services that are also contributing to make that game a reality. This is not that unusual. It does happen rather frequently with some smaller studios that want to capitalize and have enough money to make their own game. So sometimes between games they open up their services like, hey, we can do game localization, we can do game ports to another console, we can develop a game that you want, and that helps finance the studio. Here at Mindera, since Mindera Gaming is within the Mindera universe, even though we offer those services, of course, it's different reality. We aren't a 100% indie dev out of the garage game dev studio. So we have this huge structure supporting us, and if there is a problem that starts off as gaming related but very quickly scales to cloud, infra, backend, we have the people around us to support us in that work, because we at Mindera Gaming, we're not alone.
So you're talking about big challenges, right? So in the past you've used, and even now probably using VR, XR, a bunch of things. Can you touch a little bit on, without kind of going through like what you can say, because there are some...
Yeah, there are some limitations, but there are some projects that make me question how much is too much in terms of hardware. So you end up looking like a sort of megazord with a lot of accessories. Like you mentioned, we do work a lot with VR, with XR really, so extended reality, AR, VR, mixed reality. And sometimes we add a little bit extra onto that. So we're talking biometrics, biofeedback, and a lot of peripherals depending on the area that we're working. Now you could argue, yeah, but who's going to be the gamer that's going to buy 15 to 20K worth of hardware to play your game? And the thing is, a lot of the things that we do aren't focused at the general broad audience of gaming. They're focused on very, very specific niches, and that's where we mostly shine, in this specific type of work.
So I think when you're talking, the first thing that came to mind is the movie Ready Player One. So we're talking about something like that, where I don't know who is the figure, the founder figure that funds the game, but are you one of the guys that build that kind of game, and are we going on that direction where you kind of completely immerse yourself in a game?
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a struggle for the VR, the pure VR kind of field, particularly consumer focused, because it can be very isolating. So if we're here and I'm like, well, I'm going to play a game and put a headset, it automatically creates a barrier. It's like opening a laptop and creating a physical barrier between myself and you. Personally, I feel it's going to be more focused on AR and mixed reality. It's going to be very easily able to go from fully immersed to very lightly so, mostly augmented reality. I feel like we're definitely very close to breaking new grounds in terms of market. So you've probably heard about this buzz around smart glasses and AR glasses.
I was going to ask about that. So Vision Pro, I have my strong opinion, and we actually touched that on one of the first episodes of this, about how Vision Pro can be considered a success or not, or at least a pioneer in something. But now definitely Meta with the Ray-Ban glasses, it is creating some buzz.
It is, and it's definitely not VR, but it will take a lot of the concepts that made VR a reality and bring it to the masses, more focused in actually augmenting reality, rather than completely isolating you in an immersive environment. So definitely not the same audience, but I feel like it's going to democratize this sort of technology, and I feel that it will be very pervasive. I think it's going to be what smartphones were for feature phones. Basically.
That jump.
It's going to be a huge jump in form factor, for sure. And I'd say that I also have strong opinions about Apple Vision Pro. For one, I'm kicking myself for not having bought it, keeping it closed in a box for a few years, and flipping it for a profit. I've tried it. It was one of the most polished.
Consumer like those products that are going to go away, and then you just have the unopened box that's going to be worth.
Yeah. It's probably going to be what Virtual Boy was for Nintendo. It's a relic of its time, even though it's rather recent. It was very expensive. It underperformed, but it kind of paved the way a little bit for what's next.
So you mentioned a lot of hardware there. How does that weigh down your project, or doesn't? How do you manage that?
It does. The sort of VR applications that we developed, they are mostly targeted to very specific niches in terms of serious games. Basically, a serious game is a game that you play not for fun, but out of a sort of obligation. So we're talking about mostly games for training, simulators, interactive simulators. And if you think that, okay, maybe I'm...
An airplane, a military simulation.
Firefighting, military, defense, yeah. Though all those kinds of simulators that are mostly looking to recreate situations where failure can be very expensive, be it in
like dying.
Like dying, obviously, like dying, or crashing a $30 million airplane, those sorts of things. Or even spending tons in fuel or parts or munitions or whatever it may be. These have been around for literally centuries. So the thing is, they weren't digital back then. Now we're talking about the evolution where, okay, we're trying to provide more and more realistic and immersive situations where you might believe that you're actually there and doing what you're supposed to be doing. Ultimately, the goal of simulation is it has to be near indistinguishable from real life. The actions that you can take are the same actions that you can take in real life, and you can extrapolate what you did wrong to what you would do wrong in real life and learn without the risk of, well, dying or burning a lot of money from your company. Yeah, it can be annoying.
In some of the examples that you're talking about, it's what you call serious gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Do you balance fun on those? So how much fun is it involved in that?
Yeah, I would say, let's say, quality of life improvements within these simulators where you can cut out the fluff. Say you're mostly creating a simulator where you're focused on, I don't know, target practice. Maybe you cut out the part where you have to maintain your weapon, carry munitions physically from place A to B, and have people already starting at the situation you want to train them at. So I wouldn't say they're inherently fun or aim to be fun, but they can cut out a lot of the boring things that aren't relevant for the real life scenario. So sometimes it's not exactly making things fun, it's making things less boring. And obviously you want to have your people, your participants in the simulator engaged with the simulation. So you don't want to bore them with things that you know might be a distraction or might take them out of being there. That again, immersion, sense of presence, these are all very important in these sorts of simulations. Because if I'm a firefighter in a simulation and I know that those flames in the building aren't real, I'm going to factor in whether I like it or not into my decision. I'm not feeling the heat, my breath isn't being affected, my breathing isn't being affected. So obviously there will be what we call a simulation bias, a difference between what's happening in the simulation and what would be happening in real life. Ideally, these would be as close as possible to one-to-one, but it's a simulation. It's like if we were to simulate like a fire drill. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's one thing when the building's actually on fire, and when you kind of suspect or know it's not a real thing.
You're talking about training very hard skills through games. What are the mechanisms that are useful? Like, is it scoring? Is it achievements? Feedback loops?
Gamification is definitely a very strong tool, and it can be used to help, well, learning and creating certain changes or in behaviors, or creating new behaviors in your users. The biggest issue is it can be ultimately almost a curse, where your players can subvert the system completely, and now they're not interested in the task or the game itself, but only on the gamification aspects, and they're basically metagaming and playing for the metrics. Oh, I'm just going to open the game just for the daily rewards, or oh, I know a shortcut where I don't have to play the game and get a really high score and unlock yada yada. So be careful what you wish for with gamification. You do raise an interesting point here, where we have to talk with domain knowledge experts to understand what's relevant for a trainee or a learner in these simulators to know about. For instance, okay, is the simulator about driving? What specifically is going to be important as a skill for a driver in this scenario? Is it checking your oil lights? Is it being able to physically go up and down with your blinker lights? It has to be very, very detailed. And I think one of the most interesting little things a domain knowledge expert, an instructor for the sort of weapon system that we were developing a simulator for, the instruction manual said that there were certain types of switches where you'd pop the cover off and then you have access to the switch. So we implemented in the simulator a way that you'd open the cover and you'd be able to flip the switch up or down and close the cover. You could only close the cover if the switch was down. What this instructor said that it was, you know, almost every time we teach someone to do this, we just say, if you want to flip the switch down, you just go and pop the cover down, because it immediately pushes the switch off. This isn't exactly a thing that was documented in the instruction manuals, but he said that it was something that they taught the trainees. So we implemented that. On gamification, historically it's been pretty difficult to prove that it has a completely positive impact when compared with other traditional methods. It's the chocolate-covered broccoli, where you're
expecting a vegetable reference now.
You're still eating broccoli. Sure, it's chocolate-covered, but it's still going to be broccoli. So it gets to a point where a lot of people will say, you know what, I just rather eat the broccoli. That's a bit of the issue with gamification in certain areas. It can be difficult to say, okay, did the learner actually improve the skill in the skill? Yes, but did it do better, and did it learn in a way where it was preferable than traditional method? We want to implement in these sort of simulators solutions that incentivize the learner in their learning journey. So you want to provide positive feedback, you want to provide constructive feedback, but you want to also kind of keep them motivated in learning and in knowing that they're improving and that they're acquiring a skill. But the thing is, this has to be very much made in conjunction with the domain knowledge experts. Can be the mentors, the trainees, the drill sergeants. So depends kind of the simulator and the role that the learner plays in the simulation. So it can be very important to know what mechanics are they interacting with, what's important in the simulation and what's fluff. Maybe if it's a driving sim, it isn't too important how the wind sways the trees, but it can be a driving simulator where you're training drivers in very harsh weather conditions, and suddenly that's more important, and tire grip is important. So it's very dependent on what skill are you wanting to improve, and then knowing how can we grade that competence, how can we know that the learner is improving, that he's gaining that knowledge. Sometimes it can be direct observation. So I, as a trainer, can review your session. Your session, and compare your progress with other trainees, for instance. Just kind of putting my finger in the wind, or I can actually have metrics. I can have an analytics layer on top of this to kind of monitor things for me and create certain alerts, certain recommendations, for instance. It's really very, I would say, domain specific, but also it can be very project and client specific. And that's kind of where all this very specific hardware comes into play, because it can be very important that the input that the trainee provides to the simulation is as close to real life as possible. So it can be an actual lifelike steering wheel and pedals, or an actual joystick from a real cockpit that mimics as close as possible. Sometimes one-to-one the actual physical hardware to create this muscle memory, where the first time a trainee enters a cockpit, even though it's their first time in the cockpit, it's not really their first time in the cockpit. Yeah, that sort of thing.
So we were at the basement with game nerds until this time. We're now moving into probably the garage with development nerds. Tech-wise, what does that mean? So you're using Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah.
But kind of let me peek under the hood.
Okay. Let me paint you a picture. You have about 11 milliseconds to provide the trainee with visual stimulation, auditory stimulation, oral and haptics stimulation, usually, and whatever other method of feedback you have, and you have to collect their input, updates the simulation, and everything in it. And you have pretty much about 11 milliseconds to do things the right way. You have to know what hardware you're working with. You have to know what the target hardware is going to be like. What kind of machines are we're working with? And the good news about working in these sorts of industry or manufacturer-specific simulators is that you have a lot of control about the whole integration. Whereas if I was making a game and releasing it to the general public, I don't know what computer you have in your home, but I for sure want to be sure that you're able to play the game that you just bought from me. The good news about this is that this allows us to very much fine-tune the experience. And we know that what we're experiencing in creating this simulation is going to be pretty much on par in terms of performance and reliability, which is also very important in a simulator.
You can also become Crisis, and instead of focusing on the game, you're a benchmark for the hardware. Which
no, that doesn't fly. That doesn't fly. So you can, let's say, create certain tiers of detail, obviously, but usually the sort of simulations that we have are very closed in scope. They can be kind of, let's say, augmented or integrated within other domain simulators, where, for instance, maybe you're training how to fly a plane, and I'm training how to drive a tank, and we're within the same environment, but each one of us is training different things, even though we're doing a joint training session. So there is that, and we also do develop a lot of those kinds of simulators. But the advantage that we have here in terms of knowing what the hardware is we know what input devices you're going to be using, we know output, we know computational power. This allows us to fine-tune to a T. So we can ensure that, you know what, I can go a little bit extra and push on the rendering detail of that certain feature, or add maybe this extra mechanic that I know won't bog down everything, because we know what the end user is going to be experiencing it with.
A lot of people that come to computer science, they're coming from a game background, so they love gaming and they end up here. To them, what kind of languages and so? What are you talking about? Unreal, of course.
I'd say
but
that.
Then, what else?
So Unity for sure. Even though we don't do a lot of simulators developed in Godot, we have a lot of Godot fans. A lot of the simulators that we developed are using proprietary engines. I think the one that's a little bit more popular is Bohemia Interactive's VBS4. So it's not exactly available to the broad public, a student, whatever, but it's public enough where you can go and buy a license and specialize in it.
Why is it proprietary? What does it bring?
It started as a game, and you maybe you've heard of Arma, and their game was such a realistic military simulator, shooter, vehicles, etc. that they actually created a spin-off and said, you know what, we're going to develop simulators based on our own game, and kind of that's the origin story for it. I would say that the market for simulators right now is very geared towards Unreal as well. If you're developing a simulator from the ground up, there are a lot of requests specifically for using Unreal. I would say that probably 2 years ago things shifted from Unity to Unreal in terms of those kinds of requests. There is a lot of expectation about high performance, and I know some of you are thinking Unreal and high performance. Yeah, sure. But the thing is, again, we have control of the hardware, and the hardware can be 5090. So we're not aiming our simulators at, let's say, entry-level hardware. And since we have quite a lot of control over
it's not
things,
for the laptop that you have at home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. So I would say that if you're a strong C++ developer and you're looking to break ground into this area, Unreal and even VBS is also C++ based, so you can also go in through that. A few other engines that are pretty popular or popular enough in gaming, like CryEngine. I wouldn't say it's that common to find simulators based on CryEngine, but you'd still find a couple. So I'd argue that a good split between Unreal, VBS, and Unity within this area. And sometimes you have also these really interesting opportunities where you have like a very bespoke, very complete simulator done in a specific language that has very crappy rendering capabilities. And you're still using that for simulating the environment, but then you have a visualization layer just built on top of Unity or Unreal.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. And sometimes you'd be surprised at, wow, this looks amazing, it's so immersive. Yeah, it's running on a 1990s simulator that's so domain specific and so feature complete that nothing compares to it. But it's running on AAA engine graphics, on AI. So I think it's very, very important to distinguish the traditional AI in games, which is basically controlling certain non-player controllable characters.
The very stupid bots.
Yeah, basically. But the beauty of those very stupid bots is usually they run pretty well under 11 milliseconds. So you can have a lot of stupid bots, and sometimes stupid is believable, and sometimes you can see, okay, there's something weird happening there, but my brain won't even register it because it'll just say that, yeah, I believe it. So there's that sort of traditional AI in games that features a lot of techniques, a lot of things that were very well developed and polished during the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And now we have a lot of generative AI related things. And the first thing everyone looks at is, okay, art for games. It can be 3D assets, it can be music, audio. And usually it can be a good starting point for creating a sort of mood for your artists to build upon. It can help you in sharing the vision that you have for something. It's very difficult to have something that's as good right now as what someone would manually and painstakingly do by hand. Obviously, there's the cost of one thing and there's the cost of the other, so you may be budget constrained, and
you might have the Flappy Bird effect.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's a lot of asset reuse in games. Even huge studios promote asset reuse in games. Most of the time, you're not going to notice if a bucket or a barrel is coming from another game, if it's a store-bought asset, as long as it's visually consistent with everything else, of course. If it's not, you're probably going to notice it, and the developers will be called out, saying, hey, that asset looks definitely out of place. You're probably just reusing an asset just to kind of skimp on work. It doesn't look great. I do believe that Gen AI will help in a lot of this. And I feel like it will help developers very quickly, instead of using placeholder assets, which is something that we do a lot. So our simulators in games look like, well, crap, but also very abstract. And it can be like a few weeks or months till delivery, and you're still seeing flying cubes or completely white walls and tables and characters. So these Gen AI assets can also help in creating these placeholder elements where they're good enough till something better comes along to replace them for your final work.
The next, I'd say, next level to games, which is crowdsourcing the knowledge of people to solve very hard problems.
Yeah.
I think now with all the new stuff that you're talking about, do you see more of an opportunity to solve complex scientific or logistic problems with games and maybe this is the time to kind of showcase that you shouldn't be fired and AI replace you, right? So what do you think you can bring, or you as in the community bring in? Of course, I'm joking with this AI, but what do you think like the human mind can bring in the next couple of months/years that's going to be really interesting in this?
Yeah, so a cool thing about games, and particularly very large, massive scale games, they can have such a strong effect on the public that they can break down cultural and language barriers as well, and create a common framework for people to work and collaborate, even though they may not speak the same language or be in the same time zone even, they can still cooperate towards something. And again, it can directly be tied to contributing or solving something that's very real world specific. It can also serve as a foundation for what would happen in the real life if this were to happen. Quite a few years ago, there was a bug in World of Warcraft where your character would die, but before dying, he'd be able to basically infect other characters from other players, and they would also die. And it was very interesting to see how you'd immediately have a pandemic-like scenario within a game that was developed for entertainment out of a bug. And this was something that was actually even studied, and a lot of the behaviors and patterns were not too dissimilar from what happened with COVID. Out of a coincidence, it happened that we were able to study certain patterns in the human behavior in a synthetic scenario, so stakes would be relatively low. Nobody was actually dying, thank God. And you would have this kind of fish tank where you could observe how people were reacting and acting. And you can definitely take these sort of things, and a lot of people have, and create actual frameworks where people can help each other and solve problems. It can be from things like social anxiety, helping problems that are phobias that are very, very specific, but just having this sort of space and reach within a community, it's honestly amazing. And I feel that it's the sort of thing that games don't get enough good publicity when they do these kinds of things right. So you're always thinking, oh, that guy's addicted to whatever MMO he's playing now. Yeah, but if he's a young kid or maybe a young adult, he's probably polishing his negotiation and bargaining skills, his ability to plan and prioritize, and even his imagination as well. So there are a lot of good things that can come from playing games. I think anyone that's played a game long enough eventually comes to experience what's called as the Tetris effect, where this was a thing that was first kind of related to people that played Tetris for a long time, where they would start seeing physical pieces and wanting to combine them and seeing them falling, and that happens a lot with games. And if you start playing certain games, you start also observing the world in a way that's very geared towards the perspective of that game. Obviously, you're very conscious that you're experiencing that perspective, but it can be an interesting way of kind of changing your perspective, even if for a small bit, and you start seeing the world as, oh yeah, I remember that time playing City Skyline where I had to solve that roundabout and traffic light problem, so I'm starting to see that same problem here, and there. So these kinds of things can be really, really eye-opening.
I was thinking that you're going to say that when you look at the trunk of a car, you could name who played Tetris well enough. But yeah, just to wrap up, what was the last game that you played that made you wow?
So those that know me know that I have quite a soft spot for Binding of Isaac, and even more so after knowing how it relates to the life of its creator, and how a lot of it mimics certain childhood traumas that you may or may not relate, but after hearing the creator talk about that in interviews, you can see how that is in the game and how it was placed. And the conflict between what you feel is right and wrong and how you were raised and what was your background, it's there and it's very present and it's a very strong theme, but you can also have quite a lot of fun in the game and not even notice that. And that's fine. I think that's the beauty of a lot of these games. A lot of these games are so much fun. You can just turn off your brain and play them. But there are also games that have multiple layers and you can treat them as an actual work of art. And I think that there can no longer be any sort of doubt that games are an art form, as cinema is. It's not a thing where you'll say, oh, it's like photography or painting, or no, it's very much its own thing. It's performative.
It is very cool to see the passion coming out, so thank you. And I think if you're seeing this and if you're interested in games, you can always reach out.
For sure.
As well, LinkedIn or wherever. And if you're also interested in building a game, I think he is the guy with the passion for it. So thank you for joining. This was a pleasure.
Anytime.
And thank you for watching. See you in the next video.
Bye.